While connected technology is essential for unlocking new efficiencies on the production floor, it's also presented hackers with new opportunities to steal valuable IP and data. To support OT professionals in their battle with cyber criminals, we launched the Security Breach podcast. In each of our over 100 episodes, we've brought in cybersecurity specialists to provide valuable insights and break down critical topics. As a go-to podcast for our listeners, we want to help you align your brand with our expertise. By sponsoring our podcast, your brand will build trust, and your message will stand out to an audience searching for tools to assist their cybersecurity efforts. Secure your share in this rapidly growing segment by sponsoring Security Breach. Contact us today to learn more. Hi, I'm Jeff Ranke, Editorial Director of Manufacturing.net and Manufacturing Business Technology. Welcome to Security Breach. While we're still in the infancy of 2025, the new year has proven to have no issues in welcoming in a number of pre-existing challenges, whether we're talking about cybersecurity or other social topics. So in continuing this trend, we tapped into a unique collection of voices to discuss a topic that has and will continue to be vital to industrial cybersecurity efforts. That's artificial intelligence. First, we'll hear from Mandiant's Paul Shaver as he discusses the legacy dynamics of industrial cybersecurity, including ongoing obstacles associated with inventory, visibility, and segmentation strategies, and the impact AI could have on all of them. Then we'll transition to HackerOne's Will Kapcio for his take on AI and the ongoing evolution of cybersecurity tools. We'll wrap up with instructor and the author of The Hack is Back as he discusses what drove his desire to write the book, the impact AI is having on the next generation of cybersecurity specialists, and the evolving vulnerabilities they can expect to face. You know, it's funny with OT cybersecurity, we're always talking about new technologies, but we always end up also talking about older stuff. The dynamic of all this legacy technology that permeates through the ICS. And I was hoping to get your take a little bit on what are some strategies that we can deal with here? There's a lot of different challenges when it comes to updating a lot of these connection points and a lot of the infrastructure that's there, just either from a human resources, from an investment perspective. What would be your take or advice on helping some of the folks in manufacturing and critical infrastructure deal with some of this legacy equipment?
So, legacy equipment really comes down to good security hygiene, right? For a lot of these devices, they don't have the security capabilities. They don't have any kind of advanced functionality that would give us the ability to secure them in a way that kind of modern IT tech does. So it comes down to good security hygiene, getting good segmentation in place, using good access controls, both for the network access and user access, making sure you understand, what your communication flows look like in these environments, what data is traversing in and out, and even what's traversing kind of east and west in these environments so that you understand kind of what normal traffic looks like. And segmentation goes a long way to controlling some of that to make sure that you don't have, and both from a, kind of network reliability standpoint, right, to keep the amount of network traffic down, but also to make sure that, if one device were to have a vulnerability and get compromised, you kind of eliminate the ability for that to transcend into another segment, right? So going back, just like regular security hygiene is really, really important. Understanding what's on your networks and getting good asset inventories. So for a lot of these things, like I said, legacy devices don't support that kind of security capability. So we got to kind of go back to some of the old school techniques to keep the segments and the OT environment safe.
Yeah, I always use the term blocking and tackling. I think everybody from my kids to the listeners of this podcast probably gets sick of me saying it, but it seems like we're coming back to some of those core strategies. You talked about basic hygiene and talking about segmentation and inventory. Those seem to be such building blocks of industrial cybersecurity, but they get overlooked so frequently. What do you think plays a part in that? Is it just because there is so many things to think about and digest and it's easy to look past it? Is it a more difficult task than people, or a more simple task people think it's too difficult? What do you think are some of the stumbling blocks there in really going after and implementing those two approaches?
One, it can be a really daunting task to take on. Let's, just look at inventory, right? Some of these manufacturing plant floors may have tens of thousands of devices that are connected, right? And we're adding more and more to that every day, right? We're adding newer tech. We're adding, industrial Internet of Things devices. We're using torque wrenches that have a network connection, right? So we're adding to this all the time. And so we've got multiple generations of tech. And so trying to get your arms around that can be really daunting. And I think that's part of as a previous asset owner, right? That was a huge task to try to figure out how we got a good asset inventory. We're starting to see some tools that are doing a better job of asset inventory and collecting more of that data, which is a good thing. But historically, we haven't had great tools that can do asset inventory, down 2 or 3 levels into an OT environment, right? So it's hard. You might get a cursory level. You might understand that you've got, one PLC chassis and that's got a network card, but you can't see past that to the 2 or 3 other network cards that are downstream of that are talking to VFDs or motor control centers or some other thing, right? So having tech that can reach down into that environment is difficult too. So, and then just for segmentation, the biggest thing that I've seen historically in trying to get your segmentation under control is doing that in a way that doesn't cause downtime, but still adds that level of security that you need to do it. I mean, we still live in a world where these manufacturing plant floors are on one big giant flat network, right? And when you're looking at those networks, if you start segmenting stuff and don't have a good engineered network plan in place, and you're establishing the routing protocols that you need and all of the routes that you need ahead of time as you go, really easy to lose connectivity between segments and then potentially cause a production outage, right? So it's a daunting task to tackle, right? And I think it comes back to you got to find some way to start eating the elephant. And for a lot of these environments, they haven't even started with the first thing, which is, knowing what you have in your environment. And so it just becomes a big set of unknowns. And I think that to your point, when you first started talking about this, right, it becomes a resource constraint issue too. Do we have all the people that we need that know all of the things that we need to be able to go and do these things? And then for your OT engineers, your controls engineers, your OT network architects that know these environments, you're adding cycles to their week so that they can come in and support a security project to try to identify this stuff too, right? So, I've lived it, I've breathed it. It is challenging, but it is the fundamentals that will create a more robust, defensible environment, and it's still the very best place to start.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about compared a little bit to exercising. I'm not I have to run and do cardio. I don't like doing it. But after that first step, it feels like it does get easier to get going. Once you have to take that first step, even though it's scary and daunting. So the other topic I have to ask you about, due to your affiliations here, is artificial intelligence. I mean, I know we could probably talk about that in and of itself for the next half hour, but maybe hit the high points here a little bit. What is your take in terms of AI, the threat that it offers, but also the opportunities that it presents to cybersecurity specialists?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's great opportunities for the threat actors and great opportunities for the defenders at the same time, right? So I think it's just like anything else. The more we advance with tech, the more we have to stay vigilant to learn what those tools are, how they operate, and how they function, and how they benefit us. Because the threat actors are going to be using them to do the evil things on the other side, right? So, there are a lot of advantages, whether it's anomaly detection or, helping, like a new vulnerability comes out, right? And you get a new vulnerability in your threat intel feed, and you have good asset inventories. You know what devices you have, and you can build, very quickly build some kind of rule based on AI, an AI query to to search for the impact of that in your environment, right? So it speeds up how quickly we can respond to new things popping up in our environments. So there's a lot of really beneficial tools that we can leverage to respond more quickly. And at the same time, the attackers are going to be using these things too. I think the most important thing here is, as defenders, we need to be looking at how do we leverage these tools? How do our organizations, put policy and process around how AI is used, what data can be put in them, how and what the use case is for AI in your environments, and then from there, figure out how you can leverage those tools based on the guidelines that your organization has to best defend your environment. Because if you don't get proactive about learning how to use it and leverage it and inside the guidelines that your company has established, the attackers are going to use it against you. And so it needs to be a two-way street in order for us to adequately defend.
No, I think that's a great point about developing those AI SOPs, because you're going to get some folks who get real excited about it and try to implement it in a lot of different places, and you're kind of spinning your wheels there. It may not be the best fit based on what your organization needs. So I think that's
it's real easy for corporate data to leak. If an employee is using a public version of a large language model, and there's no use case for it, and they're just dumping data in to do some research, and so it's really easy to have a data leak, because you don't know where that data is going or what the security is on the other end of that LLM. So really, really important for organizations to build an AI use policy, to educate their employees, and to start thinking about how they can use it internally and put some guardrails around it.
Absolutely. Paul, awesome stuff here. Wrapping up a little bit, any other big trends or considerations, things that we should be aware of heading into the near future here?
We'll be back after a quick break.
AI is changing the game of business. Will you be on the winning team? I'm Jordan Wilson, the host of the Everyday AI podcast, and your coach to help you learn the X's and O's of AI. Artificial intelligence isn't just a new player in the game, it's a new sport altogether. So if you don't quickly put AI into play, your competitors will run up the score. I've spent my whole life building winning teams, from coaching basketball to working with big players like Nike and Jordan Brand. My next move? Helping you win with Everyday AI. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or on everydayaipodcast.com. Let's tap into AI together and put points on the board.
I think you got some positive trends to look at, right? We talked about a couple of them here. The adoption of cloud technology that can really improve the resiliency of some of our OT systems, the effectiveness and the efficiencies of those systems, through things as simple as process optimization through the analytics that cloud platform can perform, but also moving some of these systems into hyper-converged cloud-based technology, where you leverage the resiliency and the recovery times that brings as part of having a large scale cloud infrastructure, and be able to stand systems back up after an impact more rapidly. AI, as we said, really some beneficial use cases. The threat actors are going to use it too. So, and I think the other couple things to think about here is, we're starting to see a lot more traction from the ICS and OT vendors, and they're starting to build more security capability into their newer generation of devices. The vendors are starting to take the security a lot more seriously. And so we're starting to see an evolution of OT products, again, to my point earlier, where we're actually starting to kind of get ahead of that curve, and we're not chasing as much security as we used to. There's some things to be aware of, right? Adversaries are going to use the AI. There's an increased access to tools and services that lower barriers for lower skilled attackers. And then we've got threat actors out there, right, that are still continuing to be really active. They're engaging in espionage operations. They're conducting cybercrime operations, and whether or not there's a direct impact to OT there or not, it's often pretty secondary. And so again, back to good security hygiene and making sure that we're doing all the right things so that we don't have that secondary impact to an OT environment. And with those threat actors and geopolitical tensions, we're going to continue to see things kind of be very dynamic, I think, over the next few years. And that's probably the best way to say it. But that's the life of us in security, right? If you sleep for 8 hours, there's a chance you got to wake up and learn something completely new, because new vulnerabilities, new threat actors, new compromises to figure out what happened and how it happened, and then go and apply that to improve our own defenses. So it's a constant battle.
We know it's constant, but I think a lot of things that you laid out here, Paul, make it feel manageable. And like you indicated, there's been a lot of progress here, a lot of positive progress that we should be excited about in terms of how we can go about things on a day-to-day basis. Excellent.
Yeah, I think definitely a lot of good things to be optimistic about. And so, like I said, I'm pretty confident that we're in a place where we're doing better at being on the curve rather than behind the curve, and then eventually moving to building security capability that's leading edge for OT focused is a really exciting place to be. So
there's probably no way we could get through this conversation without talking about artificial intelligence and the impact it could have going forward. What are you seeing right now? Is it too soon? We know the hackers are using it. How can the good guys start using it too? Or what are sort of your overall thoughts on AI and its role going forward?
Yeah, I was actually just speaking with a hacker just yesterday, right, that was letting us know how they use AI. And the answer was kind of like brainstorming, right? It helps them scale. It helps them be more creative than they already are. And so being able to generate code, generate payloads, kind of bounce ideas off of, those are the kinds of use cases that we see for AI and Gen AI here at HackerOne. We're also learning continuously internally, not just from our hackers and customers. We have our own AI co-pilot, and we have a team that's dedicated to building that out and helping customers in a variety of ways, and hackers. And so we're constantly looking for new use cases and understanding a little bit about how each of those groups uses those types of tools.
Do you think it's getting too much noise right now, or not enough? I mean, are we spending the right amount of attention and resources potentially on AI and how it could be used in cybersecurity, or what are your thoughts there?
Oh man, I don't know if I have any insight for you on resource allocation, right? But I certainly do talk to customers about this. We have an AI red teaming product, and so we're certainly well versed in trying to help customers navigate this. Ultimately, I think it comes down to a really simple sentiment that I've seen echoed elsewhere, which is like, does this application need AI, and does it need to be attached to the things that it's attached to? That's ultimately the best way that you're going to reduce the risk. And certainly hackers, again, can be a point of emphasis on that, right? Whether it's a report that comes in or just simply some sort of consultative approach that we can take to have them investigate the threat model of a specific AI implementation and just give some advice. That's how we're going to be able to help customers answer those key questions that I said, right? Like, do we really need this here?
Yeah, I think that is that's always the question going forward. Whenever there's a new technology introduced, how badly do we need it? And getting back to what we were talking about before, what priority does it deserve? Absolutely. Another real hot topic in the industrial sector is we have a lot of tools out there. And a lot of times it's difficult to assign priorities to those tools, or have so many tools in place that we're not using them, overspending, things of that nature. With all the vulnerabilities that you're seeing popping up in some of the work that you guys do, are there certain tools that you see companies or organizations should be using more? Maybe they're too reliant on, or things that they should be looking to invest in going forward?
Yeah, I certainly SAST and DAST is important to have, and it absolutely has its place. When it comes to recommendations, I think it's simply taking the time to tune the tools to your specific threat model and attack surface, and helping them understanding how they work together, right? When HackerOne, as I mentioned earlier, has a program in place for a customer at that final point of the stack, we are able to do those things to help them understand where things might be noisy, to help them understand maybe their own team, right, what they could safely ignore when it comes to a noisy scanner of some kind. So it can also help identify areas of further investigation right? So some of our customers elect to do maybe a pen test at the point of a release and do that before it enters their bug bounty program. We call that kind of a toll booth model. Others might take a more the reverse approach, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? If we're getting a lot of reports on a certain part of our attack surface through a bug bounty or disclosure program, now it's time to put the internal red team on it. Let's go get an external pen test run on this, right? Because it seems to be kind of an issue. So let's go root out the real root of the problem and address this architecturally, right? Give it a true fix instead of a Band-Aid.
Are there any other big trends that you're seeing sort of coming down the pike a little bit, things that you have an eye on that could have an impact over the next, I don't know, year and a half?
Yeah, I think AI is just going to continue to accelerate the way our hackers work. A lot of our hacking community is building custom tooling, and AI is certainly becoming a larger and larger part of that. So going back to just kind of augmenting the workflows that they have, it's going to help them work faster, work smarter, but it's not going to do work for them. So in a world of AI, at least at HackerOne, we see it as humans still having that valuable place alongside AI, where they can feed into each other and really augment the each other's approach to things.
The hack is back. If you were going to say that there was one sort of overarching mission or thing that you were trying to accomplish with the book, what would that have been, or what is it?
Yeah, so we're really chapter 10 actually focuses on careers and how you can get started. Now, keep in mind, some of the people reading these books may already have advanced skills, so that may or may not be a chapter for them if they're already, in the field and making money. But for someone who thinks maybe cyber is for me, they can read that chapter and say, here's a path for you to take. And some of the things that we talk about are free or low cost options. So, that not every aspect of that. Some people are trying to use this to make money. We're talking about, going to a community college and taking a security class, or using some of the free resources like Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, which does include some ICS and other things like that training as well. So we really try to get people interested. And if you are interested, then you can go back to the other chapters and say, what could I do if I had knowledge of the attacker? One of the most interesting things about the book was Chris was working with Nessus in one of his chapter, which is a vulnerability scanner. I can actually give a shout out to Maryland, because the company Tenable Security, they're headquartered in Maryland, and Nessus is pretty much the most widely used vulnerability scanner that there is. Well, when he was using it, he actually found a vulnerability in the scanner, and he reported it, and they made a CVE from it. So not only do you have him showing his expertise, but showing how to be a responsible person and to disclose something that could be a problem for that company. So I think that right there kind of summarizes, we're showing you lots of things, but we're not showing you them so you will attack networks or attack systems, but so you're aware of these and you can learn how to secure them. So and also a really important thing is, some people just are interested in hacking, but I really bring back that DoD perspective of, why are people actually hacking? What is the end goal in the game? And then show them how they might steal company data out of the network, or how they would get past antivirus and firewalls and all that. And I show them with some pretty easy techniques how some of that can be done.
No, I did have a chance to get through the book. I'm not going to claim to have read it all when you shared it with me, but I did have a chance to get through there, and it's very interesting, especially the way that it starts out in terms of talking about, these are some of the very, maybe things you overlook, or very simple or basic elements of security that you need to pay attention to, and how they can be exploited, especially when you talk about like some of the Office platforms and different ways to get in there and manipulate data, or how folks can get in there. It's enlightening, and also it should be a little bit scary in terms of the fact that this isn't real complicated stuff and people can figure it out. When you're putting together a book like that, Jesse, is there a part of you that is worried maybe about exposing too much of the secret sauce or giving people the wrong idea?
So really the idea is to teach people how to secure. If we don't show them these techniques, then what can happen is they can be vulnerable to attacks. So one of the things is the first chapter really goes in how to break into Windows without the password pretty easily. And I've actually done it demonstrations, and I've done it in a couple minutes, maybe 3 minutes or something like that. So the important thing is that same vulnerability I've been using for 20 years. And the same thing with Linux. Now there is a way to prevent that, and that is to encrypt the drive. Same thing with Linux. But for some reason, people don't always encrypt their operating system. The book does go into that, but really, some of these attacks have been around for a long time, and the vendors are aware of the physical attacks that are possible, but for some reason they don't have. I would say that Windows 11 has finally addressed this same attack that I've been using for a good 15 years or more. So that's the good news.
Yeah, and I don't want to misrepresent the book. It's definitely for the good guys. It does a great job of spelling a lot of things out, and it'll solve a lot of problems for a lot of companies. People have heard me talk about the blocking and tackling of cybersecurity. This book is a great asset in that regard, without a doubt. Thanks for joining us today, and to catch up on past episodes, you can go to manufacturing.net, IEN.com, or MBTmag.com. You can also check Security Breach out wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Amazon, and Overcast. And if you have a cybersecurity story or topic that you'd like to have us explore on Security Breach, you can reach me at jeff@IEN.com. I'm Jeff Ranke, and this is Security Breach.